Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Wise Fool podcast. I'm Mickey, and I have a great story for you today. So get ready for the witches of Walpurgis Night. On the last night of April, the village behaved as if it had made an agreement with the dark. Doors were shut before the sky fully dimmed. Windows were latched, not hurriedly, but with a kind of practiced certainty, like people who had done this every year and saw no reason to stop now. Even the fires burned brighter and longer, fed with extra wood, as though warmth alone could keep certain things at a distance. It happened every year, this quiet retreat indoors, the night before May, when winter was supposed to loosen its grip and spring was meant to settle in for good. People said it was a night for keeping close, for letting the old season finish its business somewhere far from the village. If anything unsettled still lingered in the cold, this was when it passed through. No one gave Lena a full explanation. They never did. It was simply Walpurgis Night, and that was meant to be enough. But Lena had never been very good at accepting enough. She noticed things. The way her grandmother scattered dried herbs near the doorway, muttering under her breath. Not quite a prayer, not quite a warning. The way the older boys in the village tried to act fearless, but still stayed close to the fire anyway. The way no one looked toward the mountain after sunset, even when it loomed clear and sharp against the sky. Most of all, she noticed how the stories didn't quite line up. Witches, they said, flew there. Witches, they said, gathered. But for what? That part always dissolved into shrugs or vague gestures or quick change of subject. So when the house fell quiet and the night settled in, Lena didn't go to bed. She waited. At first, the dark was empty. Just the low crackle of the fire, the occasional sigh of wind pressing against the walls. Then, something shifted. A movement, high, quick, and deliberate. Lena slipped to the window. At the edge of the sky, shapes moved, not drifting, not falling, but cutting through the air with purpose. One, then three, then more, all angling toward the mountain like it was the only place that mattered. That was enough for her. She pulled on her shoes, eased the door open, and stepped into the night before she could talk herself out of it. The forest didn't welcome her so much as tolerate her. Branches leaned low, catching at her sleeves. The ground dipped and rose in ways she didn't remember from the daylight. Somewhere in the distance, something rustled with the quiet confidence of a creature that belonged there. Lena kept moving. Up the narrow path, past the last familiar markers, toward the mountain that always seemed to draw the night toward it. The air changed as she climbed. Not warmer exactly, but lighter, like the weight of winter was being peeled back, layer by layer. By the time she reached the top, she was breathing hard, and then she stopped. The first thing she noticed was the noise. Not eerie chanting or distant thunder, but voices, sharp, overlapping, and entirely uninterested in being quiet. "You cannot just push the wind down the alley," one voice snapped. "It tangles." "Oh, forgive me for trying to meet a deadline," another shot back. "Or would you prefer we delay spring again? I'm sure everyone enjoyed that." A third voice cut in, dry as kindling. "If either of you ruins the thaw for a second year in a row, I'm assigning you both to frost duty in October." Lena stepped forward before she realized she was doing it. A twig snapped. The voices stopped. Heads turned. There were more of them than she expected, clustered in loose groups, cloaks in every shade of soot and moss and storm cloud gray. Some stood with their arms crossed, others knelt over bundles of branches or jars of something faintly glowing. A few hovered just above the ground, as if standing still required more effort than they cared to spend. They all looked at her, not with shock, not even with alarm. More like she had arrived late to something and hadn't brought what she was supposed to. "Well," one of them said at last, tilting her head. "That's a new approach." "A bold one," another added. "Walking in, uninvited, on the busiest night of the year?" Lena considered apologizing. It didn't seem quite right. "I wanted to see," she said instead. A few of the witches exchanged glances. Then one of them let out a short laugh, the kind that carried more amusement than surprise. "Of course you did," she said. "Curiosity always gets someone up the mountain eventually. Usually not this early, though." "Give it time," another murmured. "She hasn't seen the wind knots yet." Lena looked past them. At first, it was just movement. People going back and forth, hands lifting and lowering, voices calling out numbers and directions. Then the details settled into place. Bundles of branches, tipped with tight, waiting buds, stacked in careful rows. Thin, shimmering threads stretched between two witches, bending and twisting like they were being coaxed into shape. Small, glowing motes drifted in clusters, dipping towards the ground before darting away again, as if undecided. It wasn't chaos. It just looked like it, from far enough away. "What is all this?" Lena asked. One of the witches followed her gaze, then shrugged lightly. "Maintenance," she said. Another snorted. "Don't undersell it. It's orchestration." "Or a disaster waiting to happen," a third added, not looking up from the bundle she was sorting. Lena frowned. "Of what?" The first witch glanced back at her, eyebrow lifting just slightly. "Spring." Lena let that sit for a moment. "You mean you're making it?" A pause. Then almost collectively, the witches sighed. "Is that what they're saying down there now?" one muttered. "That it just appears?" "Efficient," another said. "Inaccurate, but efficient." The first witch stepped closer, brushing her hands off like she just set something delicate aside. "Nothing just appears," she said. "Not if you want it done properly." She gestured with two fingers, and one of the thin threads nearby tightened, smoothing into a steady current that slipped past Lena's shoulder and vanished down the mountainside. "The wind needs direction," she said. "Too sharp, and it snaps branches. Too soft, and it never clears the cold." A different witch passed by, arms full of budding branches. "Blossoms have timing," she added over her shoulder. "Too early, they freeze. Too late, they miss the sun." "And don't even start on the rain," someone called from further off. "We're still fixing last year's overcorrection." "That was not entirely my fault," came the immediate reply. "It was mostly your fault." Lena couldn't help it. She smiled. The mountain didn't feel forbidden. It felt overworked. "Can I help?" she asked. The nearest witch gave her a long look, eyes narrowing just slightly. "Can you follow instructions?" she asked. "Usually." "That's not encouraging." "It's honest." A pause. Then the witch's mouth curved, just a little. "Fine," she said. "Honest is useful. Come here." The work wasn't what Lena expected. It wasn't dramatic or grand. No sudden flashes of light. No booming declarations. It was precise. She carried bundles of branches to where they were needed, careful not to jostle the buds too hard. She held one end of a thread of wind, while a witch adjusted its path, the current tugging at her hands like it had somewhere to be and no patience for delay. "Steady," the witch said, not unkindly, Spring is not in a hurry, it only feels like it is. At one point, she was handed a cluster of faintly glowing motes. Don't let them scatter, someone warned. They look like they're about to scatter. They always look like that. That's the point. Time slipped. The arguments never fully stopped, but they softened, sharpening into something more focused. Corrections replaced complaints. Movements became smaller, more exact. Below the mountain, in distant villages like Lina's, people would already be asleep by now, or pretending to be. Fires kept burning, doors stayed shut, and the night passed with the quiet understanding that whatever needed to happen between winter and spring was not something to interrupt. Up here, it was simply work. At the edge of the sky, the dark began to thin. No one announced it, they just worked faster. By the time the first hint of light touched the horizon, the mountain had grown quiet. Not silent, never that, but settled. One of the witches stepped back, scanning the valley below with a critical eye. That'll hold, she said. Better than last year, someone replied. Don't say that too loudly. Lena moved to the edge. For a moment, nothing looked different. Then the changes revealed themselves. A softness in the air, a shift of color along the treetops, a breeze that moved with intention, not force, slipping through the valley as if it had been placed there by careful hands. It didn't arrive all at once. It unfolded. Behind her, the witches were already gathering their things. You're leaving? Lena said. Unless you'd like us to stay and supervise, one said lightly. But that tends to make people nervous. They don't like being watched, another added. They prefer their seasons to feel natural. Lena hesitated. If I told them, you can, the first witch said. Something in her tone suggested it wouldn't go very far. By the time Lena reached the village, the sun had risen fully. Doors opened, windows creaked wide. People stepped outside, stretching, breathing in the air like it had changed overnight. Which, in a way, it had. Spring's here, someone said, almost casually. Right on time. Lena looked at the trees, at the faint green threading through the branches, at the breeze that didn't rush or stumble, but moved like it knew exactly where it belonged. She thought about the mountain, about the arguments, the careful adjustments, the quiet, relentless work. She almost said something. Then she caught herself. Not because she couldn't, just because she didn't need to. As the morning settled in, Lena glanced once toward the mountain. For a second, just a second, she thought she saw a flicker of movement against the light. Or maybe it was just the wind, catching on something unseen. Either way, it felt intentional, like a job well done, or at least, done well enough.